everybody on this panel has made a film that's being shown tonight or yesterday, or has made films in general. I'm just sort of here to referee any fights that may happen. So I think what I'll do is I'll first ask each member of the panel to basically introduce themselves and talk about their work for a little bit, and then we might even like throw it open directly to the audience, because then we can have some real give and take. So maybe I'll start at my left and just pass it along.
My name is Jason Verney. I'm a filmmaker and a writer and a podcaster. I specialise in Asian subject matters and works of fiction mainly, but occasionally video arts and montage, documentary. My film, is Reparation. It's in this film, in this festival. Sorry.
I believe we've seen half of it.
Yeah, yesterday it played at the beginning, not the end, and it was only the last 15 minutes.
It appears that their software jumped
Yeah,
over about half hour of the selection, and his film was missing from it.
Yeah, so I grew up with LPs and records, so I know you mean things jumping to.
I didn't know that modern software could skip.
Yeah.
According to Ing, the owner of this movie theater, it's haunted. So anything could happen. So Yogesh, would you like to say something?
My name is Yogesh Chandekar. I am from Mumbai, India. I'm a screenwriter by profession, and I made a short film called Curator, which is like my first directorial, and that film is like playing at this festival, which you will see shortly.
Great. So let's.
So we missed that first thing. Yesterday, right?
Yes, but it will be shown today as well, since you missed it. Please.
Hi, my name is James Newman. I am a writer, novelist, filmmaker. I published my first short horror story back in about 20 years ago, and I am also a student of Gothic horror fiction. So hopefully I can talk about some of the theories behind what makes us scared and what makes us uneasy in cinema. I do not have a film in this race this year, but last year we had a film at the wonderful Khao Yai festival up in the jungle, which was great fun. So very pleased to be here again, and look forward to this panel discussion.
Hello everyone, my name is Boris. I'm a director, musician, filmmaker, video, photo, whatever can be shot on the camera, I do that stuff. And today I'm presenting the short movie called Crush. It's a horror film, the very first big production film that I'm making, and I'm super lucky to show it on this festival, and super excited for all the participants, and thanks for having me here.
Hi, I'm Dan Smith, filmmaker from the UK. I have had a film shown yesterday, which is quite a long, it's been from quite a while back. I think it was about 10 years ago. But yeah, it was nice to see it up on the big screen again. So thank you for that. Horror is kind of my favourite genre to watch, but I work across whatever I think I can sell, really. So it could be anything. But yeah, I'm kind of a screenwriter as well. So just working on my first horror screenplay, full length. Normally been doing things for other people, and I'm going to do my first horror film set in Bangkok. So I'm sort of sucking up the culture for the last few years. Yeah,
Great.
Probably like a Western movie, but like using Bangkok.
You mean Western as in spaghetti, or Western?
Yeah, there's going to be lots of spaghetti in it. That's funny because there's a theme. That's how we resonate. It's great to find out about you. You like spaghetti.
Andrew, there's really only one question I want to ask all the panelists. Yeah, and you have the mic right now, so we'll go all the way back here.
Do I like spaghetti?
No.
I'm more of a fusilli guy.
Ooh. That's rotini, I think, are more sexual because you know they go like this.
That's a different question.
but the question I really wanted to, the fundamental question of this panel really is what scares you? Because this was the question we asked of the people who submitted films, and
Sure.
and the answers that were given according to the films that were submitted were very, very different from each other, and so often the things that I didn't think were scary, and sometimes there were things that, I mean, there may be a lot of opinion on this. So I wanted to, what do you find scary?
Well, I mean, what I find most scary is the idea of getting old and becoming irrelevant and sort of losing my mind to sort of, you know, just kind of really banal, like awful things where you find yourself alone and sort of decrepit. I don't think these are things that you really want to write about in a horror. I mean, I know that there's this whole movement of post-horror where you take a concept like that and you kind of metaphorize it in like a cool horror, but I think actually those aren't entertaining films. Those are kind of like there's being scared for fun, like watching Lost Boys, or
Right.
you know even watching The Exorcist, you know, because it's not real. You know it's not real. But when something is real, like the idea that, you know, 1 in 2 people will get cancer. Sorry to be a bummer about this, but like that is generally terrifying. So that's really what terrifies me. But
Absolutely.
I'm not sure that that's really maybe not the answer you were looking for. Someone else down here.
No, in a way, we're looking for as many answers as possible. It's one of those questions that has many. Boris, what scares you?
That's a good question, and tonight I was thinking about that, what actually scares me. So there's actually 3 stages of fear. It's dread, terror, and horror. Dread is like the feeling of the upcoming trouble, what's going to happen to you next, is the strongest fear that you can have. The second one is terror. It's being in the process of the event that's happening, that you can see in front of you. And the last one is horror, is the consequences of what's happened. Like in horror movies, it's chopped limbs, blood, and all the organs. So it's technically the disgusting part. I was thinking, like, what can be for me personally, what is the scariest thing? And I think it's money. I think money is the scariest thing in the world, because
We have another panelist here. So
yeah, totally. Also, I have a scare of adding new panelists on the panel.
You're scared of this one.
And that's the new fear I have now.
You said what scares you, and I think James may have an answer to the question of why it scares us, because he's academically into this subject. So perhaps you could address that as well.
Well, there's 2 theories. One is Sigmund Freud's paper, The Uncanny, where he talks about uncanny in German means unhomely. Not at home. So things that are familiar to us maybe as a child, such as playing with dolls and experiencing toys come to life, will be comfortable within the home as a child. If that happens as an adult, it is particularly unsettling. For example, I love my grandmother very much. She died a couple of years ago. If she was sitting at the foot of my bed tomorrow, I would be disturbed by that. It's the familiar in an unfamiliar setting and situation. That's one theory of horror. The other is the abject, which was by a French philosopher and author, I forget her name, who talks about the bodily fluids, the disgusting blood, and I remember as a child, my mother gave me a little note that I could take to the video rental shop, the VHS rental shop, which said my son can rent any video he wants, and the guy that owned the shop would always say, "It's another blood and snot movie, is it?" And it would always be, you know, and that's an example of the abject. It's the bodily fluids, the discretion, the horror of blood and fluids, and the uncanny is the familiar in an unfamiliar situation. But what scares me personally, I watched a YouTube speech on demonology recently and possession, and I think for me my greatest fear is to be possessed or to be controlled by something, a parasite within myself which I have no control over, and leads me to do destructive things, which we all have if we look at the shadow theory of Jung, for example. There's a dual being within all of us, and mainly we scare ourselves.
Well, I think that James talks about the loss of control just now as a major feature in why we get frightened and scared. And the interesting thing is, to me, the horror genre is about how the audience, the reader, the watcher, still can feel that they're safe because it's happening to other people. And it's like being on a roller coaster.
There's a close link between excitement and terror.
Right, very much so. And I think that's a very important distinction to make. So I'd just like to introduce one more person, Kasidit, who is another filmmaker who has a film. จะให้พูดภาษาไทยหรือภาษาอังกฤษ Okay, he's going to speak Thai. So Kasidit is probably the youngest person on this panel. So and he has a film called Pretty Men. So อยากจะให้คือคำถามที่เรากำลังถามทุกคนวันนี้เนี่ยคืออะไรทำให้เรากลัวหรืออะไรทำให้คุณเองเนี่ยกลัวก็เล่าให้เราฟังเดี๋ยวแปล
สิ่งที่ผมกลัวที่สุดนะก็คือมันเป็นสิ่งที่เขาเรียกว่าอะไรครับความน่ากลัวที่เราไม่รู้ที่มาแบบ
He's saying that the fear comes from not knowing where the fear is coming from. I think that's very true.
เหมือนคุณตื่นขึ้นมาแล้วอยู่ดีๆมันก็มีเหตุการณ์อะไรบางอย่างอย่างพวกเสียงที่ไม่รู้ไม่มีที่มาหรือบางทีคุณก็ได้เสียงวิ่งขึ้นมาในหัวอะไรประมาณนั้นครับ
He says you wake up and you're not where you thought you were. something horrible is happening and you just wake up to it and it's like completely unexpected.
แล้วก็อีกเรื่องนึงเรื่องกับเสียงเป็นสิ่งที่ผมกลัวมากนะผมกลัวเสียงดังแล้วก็เสียงพวกที่มีความสั่นสะเทือนมันทำให้รู้สึกแบบเราอึดอัดตลอดเวลาในการดูหรืออยู่อะไรประมาณนั้นนะ
That's an interesting thing. Well, one of the things he fears is sounds, especially loud jolting sounds. And I think horror film creators know that the sound is one of the most often more important than what you see is what you hear. So อันนี้น่าจะเป็นสิ่งที่สำคัญมากในการทำหนังสยองขวัญเพราะว่าบางทีเสียงเนี่ยมันสำคัญกว่าภาพนะครับ Okay, Yogesh, perhaps you'd like to say a little bit now about what scares you. And by the way, I want to tell you that he has a film in today's called Pretty Men.
As James said, like, you know, even what scares me is uncanny or like unknown, unexpected, like things that you're not familiar with, and suddenly when you're faced with them, you don't know what your initial reaction needs to be. So it always starts with fear, but then sometimes you gradually get used to it and fear turns to something else. But usually it is like something that you want to stay away from. The film that I've made for this anthology is again about the whole pandemic, which is again something very uncanny that happened to the human race as a whole, where all of us were just like trapped in our homes without knowing exactly what's happening out there. Like there was stuff coming on the news and on WhatsApp, but we still didn't know what to believe in. And that is like, you know, the film that I've made is a reaction to that whole experience, wherein it was something akin to Lovecraft's, cosmic horror, where something is seriously wrong with the universe and you have zero understanding of how you're going to survive this thing. And that's why, I kind of created this film wherein initially I wanted to make it more abstract, like Uzumaki, like Junji Ito's graphic novel. But then I said that since it's happening to almost every one of us, we need to make it accessible. And that's when I kind of read this one article which was calling COVID like a serial killer with the highest kill rate. And that gave me an idea to turn this entire COVID pandemic into a slasher film. And then again, I wanted to make it enjoyable for myself, like to make it so, it's just a mechanism to take away the fear and get used to this whole thing so that you can make it more effectively. Like I grew up on the Giallo films, which I really used to love as a child. So I decided to turn this whole COVID thing into a Giallo with like the kind of imagery and the sounds and the music that kind of excited me as a child. And I'm hoping that this film kind of in some way entertains you, but at the same time gives you an experience of the horror that we all faced. And I mean, you never know, it might come again, so it's like a cautionary tale.
Oh, now what's amazing about your film is that if you watch the film without thinking of the subject matter, it has the perfect vibe of the Italian films of the 80s. And then when you think, no, it can't be about COVID because it's not. It's very interesting the way you've managed to combine these two completely sort of almost opposing ideas and make them work. I wonder what Jason would have to say about. Ooh, sorry.
That's scary.
Voice was that was just a test. There's various aspects of things that scare me. Many people have mentioned them already. Things in life like losing someone who's got cancer. For example, my dad passed away 2 years ago. Recently, I've had this long COVID thing where I get dizzy, and it scares me to go far from my home. These are just little things. I don't want to go too far because I've got to come home and sleep. But with regards to film, there's the creative process itself, which could be scary. The fear of not getting something finished or it not turning out how you want it to be. It can be very scary. And then you've got the horror films in general. I was always scared of horror films. I mean, I know that's the whole objective, but so much so that I didn't really enjoy them. I picked and chose which films to see, and I still do. Partly because sometimes they have been done before, and obviously I also think what comes to mind when it's with scary films is Thailand, but in a different way to other countries and Hollywood, Japanese films, Korean films. But Thailand, I've only seen a handful of horror kind of eerie films from Thailand, but they do it in a different way. It's more slow, mysterious, ghostly, and it's just so when I think of something scary, it can often be. Thailand has become known for scary films. I know it has a hell of a lot more than just scary films, but when I was back in the UK, it was something that me and my fellow journalist friends, because I'm a writer as well, we spoke about. So many things scare me, and panel discussions sometimes as well. But I think I've covered many of.
No, I think that I don't know if I'm the oldest person here or not, but when I was when I was very young and growing up in Europe, in England and other European countries, my dad was still a student doing a doctorate, and my parents didn't have a babysitter, so I got to see many of the greatest horror films ever made at a really young age. Because my mother loved anything with killing in it. She loved those and because of that, but she watched them with her eyes, with her hands over her eyes, so in fact, the only person who got the actual full experience was the child that she had in tow, because she herself, and then